This is the interment of a Wilbert burial vault. The vault that you see here today is a Wilbert white Venetian. When the service has concluded, there are multiple options for a family to choose from when it comes to the interment process. These options will vary depending on the culture, the religion, and what is most commonly offered in the areas in which the committal service takes place. In my area, the most common religion is Christianity and Catholicism. While it is seldom, we also provide committal services for the Jewish population, the Muslim population, the Old German Baptist community, and many more. Once the committal service has concluded, some families choose to move on to the luncheon or the repast, where they will gather together and share memories and stories of the loved one who has passed. Other times families will stay to watch the lowering of the casket, the sealing of the burial vault, and the lowering of the burial vault. In the area where I work, and personally, I would never tell a family that they need to leave before this process takes place. I have heard many stories after creating this page of families who have been told that they are not allowed to stay for the interment. My main guess as to why some funeral directors choose this is because they don't trust their vault company or their vault company's equipment, but they do say that it is a safety precaution. If that's the case, I would simply ask family members to step away from the graveside, but still watch from inside the cemetery. As a lot of people do, I believe this is a pivotal part in the committal service process. There's a sense of closure and finality that comes with the process of watching the vault be sealed and lowered. In many countries, this entire process takes place by the work of the family members, and no burial vault is used. Burial vaults are often required in cemeteries in the central United States, or a grave liner of some sort to help with cemetery maintenance, to keep the ground from caving in and settling as much as the casket deteriorates. While a burial vault does not stop the deterioration process of both the casket and our loved one, it does help keep the casket from being submerged in water when the water tables rise, and it helps keep the casket from floating up to the ground level during flooding times. That being said, it's also common for family members to stick around after the vault has been sealed and lowered and my equipment has been moved. They will oftentimes either assist with filling the grave by hand, they may place ceremonial handfuls of dirt over the vault and let the grave digger continue to backfill the grave, and some families fill the entire grave by hand. As a vault company and a vault man, it's important for us to have proper communication with the funeral directors so that we can be sure to accommodate the family's needs when it comes to this time. And before I explain the actual sealing of the vault, I do want to make sure that it's known that the tutorials, the training videos, and the informational videos that I make are not the only way that the burial vault industry runs or the funeral runs in the cemetery. I pride myself in the work that I do for the families, but I also know that this is not the only way that it's done across the United States or across the world for that matter. I'm not saying this is the best and only way to do it. I am showing what we do in central Illinois and central Indiana. When it's time for the interment, the casket is lowered into the bottom of the burial vault using the lowering device. We then release slack on the lowering device straps to be able to shimmy the straps out from each end of the casket. Once the lowering device has been removed, we can use the winch to lift the Ovation lid up over the base of the burial vault. The seal of the vault is installed before the burial vault is even poured, and the seal is activated when the base is raised into the lid. The seal is housed in the groove of the lid, and the tongue of the base enters the groove, dispersing the seal around the tongue on the base, giving the vault the airtight seal. This seal is designed to be able to heat up and cool down and adjust as the elements change. It never completely dries out, but it does harden, and in my personal experience, I've worked a disinterment for a burial vault that was interred in 1964, and the seal was still very much intact. and heavy equipment was needed to be able to release the lid from the base to provide that family with a new burial vault upon request. Now that the vault has been sealed, we can remove our lid carriers and our lid rails, which allowed us to separate the lid from the base, and we can lower the burial vault down to the bottom of the grave. The Wilbert Ovation is a display method in which we can place a print on the top of a burial vault horizontally, and the lid can be displayed down towards the family so it can be easily visible. This burial vault setup style, called the Ovation, is a Wilbert patent, and it's another way that Wilbert burial vaults can be personalized to each individual family. Wilbert burial vaults have been servicing families since before 1930 and have been providing the highest quality burial vaults since then. On this particular committal service, the family moved on to a planned luncheon after the funeral service. The way in which this burial vault was sealed and lowered is identical to the way in which this service is performed in front of the family. This is an incredibly important part of the funeral experience. This is the last time that they will see their loved one before being laid to rest. Our main priority is providing this service with care and respect to make sure the family knows that we are an extension of the funeral home, caring for their family in one of their hardest times. Once the burial vault is at rest at the bottom of the grave, the only thing left to do is remove the burial vault cables from under the vault. Now, this is where you see me place a cross or mounds in the bottom of the grave. This allows us to easily remove the cables from underneath the vault without the hooks on the cables catching on each end of the vault. Although it doesn't always work perfectly, it's simply a matter of slightly reeling the cable and applying some pressure to pull the cable out from underneath the end of the vault. Once the cables have been removed and all of my equipment for the vault has been placed back in the truck, I can remove the tent and the carpets, and the gravedigger for this cemetery will come in and begin the backfilling process. I do get plenty of questions when it comes to the grave digging as well, and while we do dig at a couple of small cemeteries close to our shop, grave digging is not one of our main priorities as a vault company. In most cases, the cemetery uses a few local grave digging companies who travel to dig the graves at most of the different cemeteries. Some cemeteries also have on-site crews that dig the graves and pour the foundations for the headstones. A lot of questions that I receive refer to the concept of stacking burial vaults on top of one another in grave plots. And while I do know that is common, in my area the cemeteries are large enough, and there are enough cemeteries to choose from where space isn't limited enough to bury vaults or grave liners stacked on top of one another. In our area, where I work, primarily has plots for one individual that may also have a cremation placed in that same grave. The standard rule is to have over 18 inches or over 24 inches, depending on if I'm working in Illinois or Indiana, from the top of the ground to the top of the burial vault. Given that the burial vaults are around 36 inches tall, this makes the graves around 5.5 feet deep. At times they may be closer to 6, but it depends on the cemetery and the gravedigger. I hope you found this video informational. Take care, and God bless.